The first thing I noticed wasn't the mistake. It was the way she smiled after it. Warm. Calm. Almost hopeful. Then the elderly woman at the open house laughed, nudged my shoulder, and said, "You two have been married long?" Before I could answer, my realtor looked straight at me and replied, "Not yet." My heart stopped. Hers didn't. She simply turned toward the kitchen as if she hadn't changed the direction of both our lives with only 2 words. If you've ever wondered whether a single unexpected moment could rewrite someone's future, this story is for you. Sometimes love doesn't arrive with fireworks or grand confessions. Sometimes it hides inside ordinary days, quiet conversations, and chances we almost ignore because we're too afraid to believe they're real. This is the story of how I walked into an open house searching for a place to live and found something I never realized I had been missing all along. Before we begin, if you enjoy emotional and inspiring stories like this, make sure to support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and sharing your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories of kindness, hope, and humanity. 3 months earlier, buying a home had been the last thing on my mind. My apartment lease was ending after the building had been sold to a developer, and every place I toured either felt too expensive or strangely empty. I wasn't searching for luxury. I wanted somewhere that finally felt like home, though I had almost forgotten what that word meant. My name is Ethan, and by 34 I had become very good at living alone. My mornings started with silent coffee, my evenings ended with television playing in the background simply to fill the apartment with voices. Friends insisted I should date again after my engagement ended 3 years earlier, but every attempt felt forced. Eventually I convinced myself that peace was enough. Then I met Claire. She wasn't the first realtor I'd worked with, but she was the first one who asked questions that had nothing to do with square footage. "What kind of mornings make you happy?" she asked during our first meeting. I blinked. "Excuse me. When you wake up, what makes a place feel worth coming home to?" No one had ever asked me that. "I guess, sunlight," I answered. "A porch would be nice. Somewhere quiet." She smiled while writing notes. "So we're not shopping for a house," she said. "We're shopping for your future." It sounded like something rehearsed, yet somehow it didn't. Claire had an unusual way of making people feel heard. She remembered small details. She noticed when I paused before answering. She laughed with her whole heart, never loudly, just enough to make everyone nearby smile too. Week after week we visited houses. One had beautiful hardwood floors but overlooked a noisy highway. Another had everything I wanted except warmth. It looked perfect but somehow felt lifeless. Every time I apologized for being picky, Claire shook her head. "The right home won't need convincing." Somehow those words stayed with me. Between appointments we began talking about everything except real estate. She told me about her father, who built furniture by hand before arthritis forced him to retire. I admitted I still kept an old baseball glove my younger brother had given me before he moved overseas. She confessed she secretly judged every kitchen by whether cookies would smell good baking there. I laughed harder than I had in months. Our conversations became effortless. Still, I never crossed the invisible line between client and realtor. She deserved someone more adventurous than me. At least, that's what I believed. One Saturday she called. "I found one." "You've said that before." "No," she replied confidently. "This time I mean it." The neighborhood sat beneath towering maple trees whose branches formed a tunnel over the street. Children rode bicycles without parents worrying every second. Wind chimes echoed softly from nearby porches. The house itself wasn't enormous. White siding. Blue shutters. A wraparound porch exactly like I'd once described. "You remembered," I whispered. "I remember everything." Inside, sunlight spilled through oversized windows onto polished wooden floors. The kitchen overlooked a backyard where an ancient oak tree stood proudly in the center. "It's beautiful," I admitted. Claire didn't answer immediately. Instead she watched me walking from room to room. Not the house. Me. As though she was waiting to see whether my expression changed. It did. For the first time in years I could imagine unpacking boxes without feeling temporary. The open house had already begun, and visitors wandered through each room. An elderly couple admired the fireplace. Young parents measured walls with their eyes. A little girl twirled through the empty dining room pretending it was already hers. Claire handed me a brochure. What do you think? I think. I stopped. Before I finished, the elderly woman approached us carrying homemade cookies from the refreshment table. You make such a lovely couple, she said warmly. My husband and I bought our first home 52 years ago. Best decision we ever made. I laughed awkwardly. Oh, we're not. Claire gently interrupted. Not yet. Silence settled around us. The woman grinned knowingly before walking away. I stood completely frozen. Claire calmly took another cookie. What? She asked innocently. You just told her. I know what I told her. You said. I did. My pulse hammered inside my chest. Why? She looked toward the backyard through the kitchen window before speaking. Because sometimes strangers notice possibilities before we do. I searched her face for a joke. There wasn't one. For several long seconds neither of us moved. Finally she broke the silence. Come outside. The backyard felt peaceful despite the crowd inside. Leaves drifted gently across the grass. Somewhere nearby a wind bell chimed. Claire leaned against the porch railing. I've been trying very hard to stay professional. I swallowed. What do you mean? She laughed quietly. The first week we met, you apologized to a cashier because someone else cut in line. I frowned. You remember that? You also bought flowers from a grocery store because an alderman couldn't reach them from the top shelf. I was just helping. You always say that. I looked away. No one notices those things. I do. Her voice softened. I noticed every single one. For the first time since my failed engagement, the walls I'd built around myself felt dangerously close to collapsing. I didn't think you saw me like that. I've been trying not to. The breeze lifted a strand of her hair across her face. She tucked it behind her ear. I kept telling myself you were a client. That eventually you'd buy a house and disappear into your new life. And if I didn't? She met my eyes. Then maybe I'd tell you what I've been too afraid to admit. I could barely breathe. What is that? She smiled, the same gentle smile that had greeted me every Saturday morning. I stopped hoping you'd find the perfect house. I stared at her. I started hoping you'd leave room in it for me. My heart pounded louder than the conversations drifting from inside the house. For the first time in years, the future no longer felt like an empty room waiting to be filled. It felt like a door slowly opening, and standing on the other side was someone who had quietly believed in us long before I ever dared to believe in myself.